76% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Is that you? I'm the CEO of 5 different companies. I wasn't born into it. We lived on welfare, but I wanted more. I created this show, The School of Wealth, helping people escape poverty like I did. I want to help you out of that consumer debt, teach you how to increase your credit score, teach you how to make more money at your current job or your current business, and then how to actually create generational wealth without changing your lifestyle. It is going to be a lot of fun. This is not like regular school. Hey, I'm Rondi Lambeth, and this is The School of Wealth. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Rondi Lambeth, and I have a special guest for you today. Someone that I've been wanting on the show for quite a while, and she's going to talk about something that I talk about a lot. In fact, it is on my book or list of recommended books, and I think, personally, it's the #1 business book ever written. So it's really my honor, and I'm super excited for today's interview with Susanne Mariga. Susan, thanks for being on the show.
Rondi, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
Yeah, it's so good to have you here. Did I butcher your last name? Did I screw it up?
Nope, you got it perfect.
Okay, good. So Susan, you are in Houston, Texas. How's Texas treating you right now?
You know what? When I watch the snowstorms in New York, I think that I am blessed right now.
Yeah,
I can almost go outside with my shorts on.
You know, it's crazy. I live in Boise, and I spent a lot of time though in Florida and then San Diego. But it's crazy here where it doesn't really snow, but when it does, like earlier this week, it snowed a little bit and then it rained. And the problem with it is it still gets like 29 degrees at night. And so it's so icy and slick. And you see people driving around these snow tires with the studs and all these crashes. And it's not because of the snow, it's because of the rain. So I'm leaving here in a few weeks, headed to Florida for the winter. Because I'm like you, I don't really want to be in the snow anymore. So what do you think is going to happen with Texas with threatening to leave the United States? We'll just start that out with that controversial subject.
You know, I think it's just talk. Talk. I don't think we can survive on our own without you guys. So I don't think we're going anywhere.
You know, what's interesting about that is Texas is the only state in the union that has in their constitution that they can just vote out. They don't have to get permission from Congress. It's also the only state that is 100% self-sufficient, and the only state in the United States that does not sync and link their energy system with the rest of the United States. They're 100% self-sufficient. My girlfriend is in the energy business, and she told me that. She's like, none of their power comes from other states. They don't rely on anything from any other state. So it's just interesting there. But anyway, let's leave that alone. Susan, you are a CPA with 2 decades of experience with this, and you even worked for Arthur Andersen at some point.
I did. I was actually there until the end. You know, I always tell people I was not involved with what happened in Houston. You know, I was actually in the Chicago office with Andersen at the time. And, you know, it was an interesting point because, you know, it's what happens, I guess, when we have a few people that make decisions that are not in line, you know, with the values of the company. You know, it can, unfortunately, you know, as entrepreneurs, it can cost you everything. And I think that's exactly the example that happened with Andersen. It was a great company, great values, definitely ahead of many of the accounting firms. In fact, when I went to join him, it was like the #1 accounting firm in the world. And because of a few bad apples and a few bad decisions that were made, you know, unfortunately, I remember there was 2,000 accountants in Chicago looking for a job.
Wow. And I want to bring this up. You are a CPA, but you're also the business owner.
I am.
Right? It's your firm. So what's your firm's name?
Our firm's name is Mariga CPA, and this is going to be our 13th year in business. So we're actually, you know, my firm is the same age as my daughter. I always tell everybody that, you know, I remember like being on the airplane in my last corporate job. I was an audit manager. And I wasn't cute pregnant. You know, they're cute pregnant people that have their bellies, you know, that are like straight out like a watermelon. I was like wide pregnant. And I remember being on an airplane and, you know, I was responsible for our Canadian operations for the company I was with. And I remember like having to fly there like every other week. And I remember one day I was like in my like 7th, 8th month pregnancy, and I'm sitting on this plane and I can barely fit in this propeller jet, you know, because I'm like
Yeah.
wide pregnant. And I was like, oh my gosh, my life is about to change. And really that was what started me, you know, and our business, you know, because, you know, I knew that I couldn't no longer travel the way I used to travel. And I wanted to be a mom that raised my daughter. And so hence our company was formed, Mariga CPA.
That's awesome. You know, the with that, I always associate your business as your baby. So my business is now, I'm going to my 14th year. And so I look at it as my baby. So it's interesting that your daughter and your business, same year old, same age. That's really cool. Tell me, did you grow up in an entrepreneur home? Is that something that you always wanted to do? Or was it because of the pregnancy that you really left the W-2 lifestyle and went out on your own?
You know, it's interesting because, you know, my father was actually a CPA. And
Okay.
when I was born, I remember like I always tell the joke that he balanced balance sheets while balancing me literally in his hand because they
Yeah.
didn't have fancy computers. Everything was done by
Hmm.
like 10 key calculator with a tape attached to it, you know, and those big ledgers that you actually have to draw in back then. And I remember he hired me when I was 14 years old to be his bookkeeper. And I remember like answering the
Wow.
phone in his business, like, "Hi, thank you for calling Roy K. Chan Corporation." I wouldn't tell anybody that he was my father, you know, because I wasn't allowed. I had to refer to him as Mr. Chan. But gosh, that man got a great tax write-off by hiring his daughter, I tell you.
Yeah.
So I always knew that it was possible out there. I didn't know at the time that I started my career that I was going to become an entrepreneur, but I always knew that it was a possibility from having started that young.
That's awesome. So I had referenced earlier or referred to earlier that you are associated with a company that helps entrepreneurs, and it's my favorite business book. And I'm very good friends with Michael Gerber, who wrote E-Myth, and he hates it when I say that I think Profit First is the best business book ever wrote. And Michael doesn't like that I say that about Michael. It's Michael Horowitz, right? Horowitz that wrote
Mike
it.
Michalowicz.
Michalowicz. So Michael Gerber wrote E-Myth. Michael Michalowicz wrote Profit First. And so Gerber doesn't like it when I say that Profit First is the best book. And I think the reason, my opinion, why Profit First is the best book ever written for business is because you got to get the money right. You got to be profitable. And the fact that over 90% of all businesses will eventually fail in that 10-year period is because the profit's not right. And what good is having all the systems set up the way Michael teaches you if you don't have the profit right? And I read this book. I brought it to one of my friends that also owns a credit repair company like me, and they're doing about $10 million a year in business. We started at the same time, same year. Their name is extremely similar to mine. And I wonder if that was done on purpose because I started first, but it's like with a couple letters off of my name. But we're good friends. And I said, hey, you got to read this book. You got to start doing it. And it was interesting, Maria. He says, oh, we don't make enough money to do that. We're not like you, that we're that profitable. I'm like, you make $10 million a year. He's like, yeah, but we're not that profitable. I said, then you really need to read the book because their salary is like $100,000 or something out of a $10 million gross. So it was just interesting. So tell us, what does a certified Profit First person at the mastery level mean? Because that's what you are. You're a certified Profit First at the mastery level.
Oh yeah, it's intense. It is intense, Rondi. You know, first of all, it means that, you know, I've been a business owner myself for many, many years, and I've worked with a lot of business owners. And it also means that I went through the school of hard knocks personally with Profit First, right? In order to be able to really help my clients and learn it and to be able to teach it and relate to them. You know, I'll tell you guys my story. I'll tell you my story with Profit First. You know, I was like a lot of entrepreneurs. I loved what I did. I absolutely loved what I did. I love taxation. I love tax accounting. I love tax strategy. And I loved it so much, Rondi. I would have done it for free. I would have absolutely done it for free. Just like a whole lot of entrepreneurs do, right? They love what they do. We go in business because we know we can make a difference in the the world. We know that we're good at what we do. We know that we love what we do. And we love it so much, whether you're a plumber, carpenter, or even an accountant, that is our gift to the world. And we want to share our gift to the world. And that's exactly what I did. When I first started my business, I was so excited about getting my first client through the door, so excited about doing great work in the world that, hey, if I discounted my price a little bit, I figured I'd make it up in margin, right? I figured I'd make it up in margin, right? Because, hey, if you keep adding clients and even if the margins are small, you think to yourself, eventually it's going to make a nice profit. And what happened was, so like, I started my business because I wanted to spend time with my daughter, because I wanted to be a mom that was actually there. And what I found was when I started my business, I found out that I actually, because it was my passion, because I love what I did, was I actually worked harder being self-employed than actually being employed by somebody else.
Yeah.
And so what happened was, instead of working 40 hours a week, I worked 60, 80 hours a week, right?
Yeah.
And I remember like one Sunday night after working many, many hours, not taking a vacation, that my husband literally told me, he goes, Susanne, we need to have a talk. And Rondi, when your spouse says we need to talk, it's a big deal, right? Something bad is coming. And it was about 3 years into the business at that point. And I remember my husband's going, okay, I know you love what you do, but the reality is we hardly get to see you. You're always working and we never get to see you. And frankly, you made more at your corporate job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And literally he told me, he goes, I think you'll be better off if you get HAOB. Now, for you guys that are entrepreneurs out there, that's like our worst nightmare, having to go back and, and leave our companies. Like you said, Rondi, it's your baby, right? It's your baby. And here my husband was telling me, you have to go get a JOB. and I remember like one night I was working really late, right? And doing taxes. And actually I was doing a tax return for free. It was actually a friend of mine. And that's what happens when you are good. Your friends start to go, hey, can you just do this for me for free?
Uh-huh.
And I remember like I was just sitting there and just filling out this tax return, and suddenly my back went snap.
Oh.
And as I was sitting on my bed, that following Monday and high on muscle relaxers from my doctor, I was thinking to myself, oh my gosh, my life is going to change. And I remember like putting out this SOS to a group of Facebook friends. And I remember really going, things have got to change. And I remember getting all these responses back because all my friends were entrepreneurs, and they were like, you know what, hey, fire this employee, blah, 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 and all this entrepreneur advice. But I remember the big advice I got was, you know what, you got to read this book. You got to read this book called Profit First. And so immediately, for some strange reason, that just resonated with me. You got to read this book called Profit First. And so I got this book. I got it through Audible because, entrepreneurs, we don't have no time to read, right? Yeah. So everything comes on Audible as you're driving to your next client, right? Mm-hmm. And as Mike was reading this book through Audible, he kept referring to these charts. I'm like, okay, I'm listening on Audible. I can't read charts while I'm on Audible. So I ended up buying the Kindle version. But, if you get on the Kindle version, you can't find the charts really easy. So then I ended up ordering like a paperback book for it. Yeah. And so Mike made lots of money from me. 3 books, right? And as I was reading Profit First, and as I was listening to it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is my life. This is my life. And what it talks about in Profit First was, we go to school, right? And obviously you being a finance expert, Rondi, we're taught revenue minus expenses equals profit, right? Revenue minus expenses equals profit. That is US GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles. But the problem is when we teach our entrepreneurs that revenue minus expenses equals profit, we teach them, hey, focus on your revenue, focus on sales, sell to anybody, discount your prices, just get those sales out the door, be responsible, pay your bills, right? Expenses, right? Pay your expenses, and then naturally profit will follow. But what happened was when we teach them that is, usually at the end of the year, that profit is literally, it's almost like a random act, right? And most entrepreneurs, when I meet, they don't even know what that bottom line is until tax time. And then when you tell them like how much they made on their taxes and how much what's due, they're like, well, where's the cash, right? Where's the cash? Yep. And so what Profit First does is we literally teach our business owners revenue minus profit equals expenses. Take your profit first. Revenue minus profit equals expenses. And so what happens is we literally tell them, we have Profit First has done many studies where a certain allocation for a healthy company based upon percentage of revenue typically goes to profit. A certain percentage goes to owner's pay, a certain percentage is reserved for tax, and then whatever's left over is operating expenses. So we tell them, on the 10th and 25th, all your money is going to be collected in this income account, and we're going to slowly transfer money first to our profit account, then to
Hmm.
our owner's pay
Yep.
account, then to our tax account, and then whatever's left over goes to operating expense. So we kind of invert the accounting equation and profit first.
I know when I hired a new tax professional, and I believe this is my philosophy, is you have a tax professional and you have a CPA that does your taxes. And just because they're CPA does not mean that they're a tax professional. There's a huge difference. You would be a tax professional that's also a CPA. But when I hired my tax professional, he's like, "Why do you have all these different bank accounts?" I said, "Because that's how I pull my profit out of my company." He's like, "I've never seen this before." I'm like, "Well, this is how it is, you know." And that's what I do. I don't do it on the 10th and the 25th. I'm sorry, I don't do pull it out on the 10th. I do everything on the 25th. All my affiliates are paid on the 25th. Generally, my payrolls run on the 25th. So everything's usually around that 24, 25. And then on the 26th to 27th of the month, I pull out 35% of what's left over in there. And then whatever's left over is for expenses. And recently, I did something that I didn't do before the book. And that was I purchased / leased about $180,000 worth of business equipment, copy machines, folder inserters, postage machines, envelope printers, like really high tech stuff. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to offer him less money. And I offered him $95,000. It was $180,000 for the stuff. And you know what they did? They took it. That's how much profit margin is in that. So I saved that much money. And now I was like, well, that's pretty cool. And now I've started doing that. I purchased a trailer a few days ago and it was already on sale and he broke it up. I said, well, is that the best you can do? Because if it's the best you can do, I'm going to go check out some other places. And if you can go to your management, shave a little bit off, I'll just write a check today. It's like, I think this is the best we can do. And sure enough, guess what he did? He left, come back. He's like, yeah, I can knock this off, this and this. Basically, he paid the sales tax on it. And so I started implementing that in there. And that's what, if you take your profit out, you don't have as much left over for expenses. So you then work on your expenses. So I like that part of it. So that's how I've implemented it in my business.
I love it. I love it. And exactly. And it works with something called Parkinson's law, right? And what Parkinson tells us is that, we humans are efficient, right? If you give us 2 weeks to do a project, we will take 2 weeks to finish that project. You give us 2 days to finish the project, it's going to take 2 days to finish the project, right? We literally consume everything that's available for us. And I love exactly what you said by literally taking your profit first, by literally having that amount that you can spend, right? I mean that they can't meet your price, they can't meet your budget because that's all you have in your operating expense account. You got to walk, and you've got to make some different decisions. And I love that, Rondi, how you were able to turn that around and actually get more things at a better value because of really just holding your ground and going, hey, this is what I have and this is what I can put away for that.
Yeah. The other thing that I really like on there is I like tax season now, and if you haven't read the book yet, part of it is Michael's going to teach you how to pull a percentage of your gross profit out and put it in your tax fund. And then the company pays your personal income tax. And so I pull out about 15% out of my gross profit. I put it in the tax fund, and then my tax professional does his thing. And usually I end up in around a 5% tax bracket, which means I get a huge bonus at the year of the end of the tax year. So instead of me paying money, I have this large bonus that now I get to go spend and go on vacation and buy cool stuff with. So I now look forward. I know that sounds crazy. I look forward to tax season.
You get to exhaust your tax savings account, right? And give yourself a bonus. I love that. And that's exactly how Profit First works, right? One of the big things that happens, with a lot of entrepreneurs or people in general, like they're nervous, right? They're like, how much am I going to owe at the end of the year? And they're like pins and needles waiting for the accountant to get back to them. But when you have that tax reserve on side where you're funding that small plate as you go, right? I'm going to call it a small plate. Which is the bank account, you're not going to be worried about am I going to be able to pay my taxes? And like Ronnie says, when you have a great accountant that's able to get you a 5% effective rate, when you've been putting away 30% practically for an effective rate, this is like a real big, hey, you're going to Florida in a week or so, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm taking in a week or so, I'm taking my entire family. And I want to talk about this. So every year for Christmas, what I do, instead of getting my kids and their significant others and my grandson, a bunch of presents that they never remember, we do a company retreat and we do our board meeting there. Both of my girls run my company. So my older daughter runs the affiliate program in the social media aspect and / marketing. And then my middle daughter runs, she's really my COO. And so every year we go on a corporate retreat / board meeting. And this year we're going to Costa Rica for 10 days. And because it is a business meeting, what is it? What is it for me now as a business owner? What's that? My favorite word to say, tax deductible. Right? So explain that for people that are listening. How can I take my kids and their significant others to a foreign country, pay for the airfare, the food, the entertainment, everything, and write that off through my business?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, you've done a couple of things right, right? And again, I'm not sure how old the daughters are, the kids are.
28 and
Um,
30.
okay, perfect. Because there's a lot of different strategies that you can do with that, obviously. If they were younger, like if they were children, there's a standard deduction, right? This year's like 12,400 for 2020. And so, if you would hire your children and give them, great work to do, one of the things that can happen is that if they're making one, besides like giving them great work experience, like, my dad hired me at 14, right, to be his receptionist as bookkeeper, it's a tax deduction for you, but now it allows the child, depending on how your taxable entity, to receive income that's below their standard deduction. If it's below their standard deduction, then they don't have to file a year in return. So, that means that, they can now pay for their own sports. They can now pay for their own activities because, frankly, they're being, they're employees, they're earning their own keep, right, with that. And so, you can even get more sophisticated, put it in a Roth, which is after tax, by the way.
Yep.
And they can start accumulating for retirement, or if they go to college, they can use that Roth money, right, to actually pay for college. And it's a tax-free transactions, right? Or if they get a scholarship because they happen to be awesome at basketball and they end up being these NBA stars, then they can use that money later on to, buy their first home use that as a down payment for their first home. And, if they end up being millionaires as NBA stars, they can just retire on that money that daddy's put away from hiring them. And just like you said, they're employees of you. They're employees of they work with Rondi, right? And so, when you go and travel for business, they can come too, right? If it's a reasonable expense that's necessary for the work that they're going to do and have that board meeting, they need to be there, then hey, it's a deductible expense.
Yeah, and we actually do it the right way. We spend more than half of the day during the week working on the business, which means essentially 4 hours and 15 minutes. One day will be strictly marketing. The next day will be operations. And then we'll do our level 10 meetings. And we do that. And I have it all documented. I put together a folder and we keep track of all of that. And then including what you said earlier, my grandson, who's 9, has been on payroll and been paid through his janitorial sole proprietorship business since 6 years old. And he gets a salary, not a salary, but he has a contract with my company. It's $500 a month. And every day after school, his mom goes and picks him up, takes him to our 4,000 plus square foot office where all the employees work. And he empties the trash of every single desk. He wipes down the desks after they leave. He wipes down the computers with disinfectant. This was all prior to COVID. Because we have this weird thing in Vegas. It's called the Vegas flu. And someone was sick every single day. So every workday, somebody called in sick. And so we started disinfecting everything. And what I found out, it was just they would go out to the casinos and clubs and they were hungover. And it's just the lifestyle of Vegas 20-year-olds. But Caden vacuums, empties the trash, because we're financial services and we have social security numbers and credit cards and birth dates and all that stuff, credit reports. He runs the shredder So he has a real job. And so that allows me to write off through the company $6,000 a year, give it to him. And then my daughter uses that money to pay for karate, to pay for soccer and all the other stuff that he wants, an Xbox. And so it's a way to take money out. And I talk a lot about that. And a lot of people get confused. So I'd like you to talk about that a little bit, Susanne, with how is it okay to hire one of your children and pay them up to $12,400 a year and not have to pay tax? And explain why there's no labor laws, because that's where everybody gets hung up. It's like, how can you hire a 6-year-old? There's labor laws. So would you kind of break that down?
Well, I think it's different. I mean, first of all, it's based upon your state, the labor laws with that. So you'll have to definitely look at what your state and what their laws are, because every state is going to have different laws. But you have gone into the Chinese restaurant where there's obviously somebody's kid working front desk cashier, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the great thing about working for your parents is it doesn't matter what age you start working for your parents. You just start working for your parents' company. And one of the things that you said was he's working under a sole proprietor. He's working under a DBA. And let's say he's working under, and if you're working under a DBA, which is a small business that's not necessarily incorporated, or it's just an LLC, and you're working for mom's or dad's DBA, right? And again, you're giving him meaningful work. He's got a time card. He's being tracked on what he's doing, and you do want to do a W-2. You do want to do a W-2, so you do want to make it, definitely you're going to report it on your 941, which is your payroll tax return. Your 940, he's going to get a W-2. You'll just have an exemption that he's not subject to Social Security, Medicare, because he's working for mom's DBA. And so then he's able to earn a salary and get a W-2, and he's able to invest that into the Roth IRA, or that's probably the better way to do it with our Roth IRA, maxing that out, and then being able to pay for karate and all the fun things that he likes to do at that point. So definitely, I mean, it's great work experience. It's teaching him some critical thinking skills and maybe how to run his own business one day, and at the same time, it's a great tax write-off for mom and dad.
Yeah. I did with him, and I have a bunch of videos on social media of me covering this with him. And I made him do the profit first setup, where we took out so much for taxes, we took out so much for savings, took out so much for investing. And essentially he got like whatever it was at the end of the day. He would do all of this. And he started at 6 years old, and he learned at 6 years old that he does not like Uncle Sam. And he's like, what do you mean I have to pay taxes? And so I explained that to him. Did not like that at all. And then at the end of the year, I said, okay, we're going to sit down, do your tax returns now. And I'm going to show you how to do this, this, and this. And then I gave him his refund back. And so it was a lot of fun. And I didn't do that with the full $500 a month. I did that with his allowance, if you will, where it's just like cash. It was like $10 a week. So it was super easy for him. And he would count out his money and put the little stacks and put in the envelope. So it was really fun to do that and teach him, because as you know, most people don't know how taxes work. They don't understand the rules. And it's like playing baseball. The batter comes up to home plate, hits a home run, and runs to third base because he doesn't want to go all the way around. And then he runs back to home. And that's how I look at how most people deal with their taxes. What do you see that most businesses prior to coming and working with you do wrong?
It's pretty much in terms of tax returns and business, Ronnie. I'm just going to actually clarify a little bit with that.
Yeah. So what do you see that most people are doing wrong in their business when they come to you?
Really, most businesses, there is a super high failure rate in entrepreneurship, right? Very few of them make it. And a lot of it is, just like I told you with my story, we do what we love. We absolutely do what we love. And the problem is we don't focus on the end game. We don't focus on what does winning look like at the end of the year or at the end of the day. One day I'm going to need to retire. One day, I'm going to need to, whether by choice or by life, right? I'm going to have to step out of my business. And so I need to run my business with intentions. And I remember when I first started my business, I remember I got my first office space, and I was so excited about about my first client coming through the door. I remember so excited to see him. And he brings with him, and it's this proverbial shoebox filled with receipts.
Okay.
And I remember he plops down at his table, and he gives me this shoebox, and it's filled with these crumpled up receipts that, like, I'd swear the man must have like went to like Home Depot and every other store and just balled the receipt, put in his pocket, and then threw it into the shoebox when he came this, right for the end of the year. And I remember he plopped down. He goes, he pushes the shoebox to me. He's like, "Whatever you do, I don't want to pay any taxes." And I remember sitting down, I remember unraveling all these receipts in front of him. And I remember getting to this bottom piece of paper, and he called this a P&L. And I don't know if it was a QuickBooks P&L or what he called it, but he called it a P&L. And I remember looking at him and I was like, "Sir, don't worry, you're not going to pay any taxes." And he goes, "Why am I not paying taxes?" I said, "Because you didn't make any money. You didn't make any money, so you're not going to pay any taxes." And I remember he leaves and he goes away and he comes back like 2 days later to sign his return. He's excited because he's getting a $2,000 refund. And he's getting his refund because he's getting something called earned income credit. That pat on the back that the government gives you for just showing
the welfare
up.
check.
Exactly. That these
Corporate
2000. Exactly. And so the next year he comes back again, brings it back the same shoebox he likes to recycle, filled with more newly crumpled receipts, right, that have stains on them. And he goes, "Whatever magic you did last year, do it again this year." And I get to the bottom of the box, I pull out the paper, and again, it's still rumpled and crumpled and yucky. And I said, "Well, don't worry, sir, you're still not going to pay any taxes because frankly, you didn't make any money." He goes away, he laughs, comes back again, gets his earned income credit, a couple $1,000s. And the third year he comes back, same shoebox, new receipts, and he plops down, and I get to the receipts and I get to this piece of paper. He still manages to mumble the same thing. He doesn't want to pay any taxes. And I still manage to tell him back the same thing. "You don't worry, sir, you didn't make any money." But this time I can't laugh. This time I can't laugh because now I know him a little bit better. I've seen him for 3 years, right? He's emailed me 11 o'clock at night because that's the only time that he has to email me. I see him like not having anything to show for all his effort. I see he's paying his employees way more than he gets paid. I see that although he's got nice office equipment, he doesn't even own his own car, right? He doesn't own his own car, and he doesn't own his own home. And I'm starting to see him. He's getting older. And frankly, I'm concerned for him because one day I want to retire and I want him to retire. But if he keeps going down this path, there's no way that he's going to make it. And what I saw with him was what I saw in a lot of entrepreneurs. They were so focused on the whole passion of running a business, the whole, focus on sales, that most of them have nothing to show for it. So I would say the biggest thing that I see is that they're not focusing on their end game. They're not thinking long term. They're not thinking about, how am I going to retire? And they're not running businesses the way that they should be. They're not running profitable businesses. And also they're getting leverage in debt. He was getting leverage in debt. And that's how he was running and financing all these losses all these years.
Yeah, he's just getting more and more in debt because he's using the debt to pay for the expenses and then pulling cash out of the business to pay for his personal life. And then he's just getting worse and worse. He's acting like Congress, right? Just raising the credit limits. Can we talk about the 5 accounts with Profit First and how you set that up?
Yeah, definitely. So the way that that Profit First works is it works on, I like to call the small plates theory, right? So like, when you go to Golden Corral and there's like tons and tons of plates, right? I'm probably confessing too much right now with Golden Corral, and there's a never ending plethora of choices, right? There's a dessert plate, the salad plate, the main course plate, and the seconds plate, right? And the bread plate. And you can go to Golden Corral and you can eat and eat and eat, and there's no limit to it. Versus going to an hors d'oeuvre dinner where you're all dressed up like Rondi, right? And you got to network and you got to look good. And the plates are like 5 inches, right? At the most, 5 inches. That's a big plate for hors d'oeuvres. You're going to eat a whole lot differently, right? At the hors d'oeuvre dinner, you're going to get maybe a few little choice sides, a lot of vegetables so you can look good and not have a full plate, right? And you're going to eat very differently. But when you leave the hors d'oeuvre dinner, you're going to probably feel full. You're probably going to feel satisfied. In fact, you're going to probably feel you're probably gonna feel better about yourself leaving the hors d'oeuvre dinner than leaving the Golden Corral, right? Where you're gonna be like swearing that you're never gonna do this again and abuse your body again. Well, that's exactly how Profit First works. Is we create small plates. We create illusion of small plates so that literally you only consume what's in your plate. So in Profit First, what happens is we create 5 main bank accounts, right? And we can get more sophisticated and more bank accounts. We do have some clients that do that. One bank account is going to be called the income account, and in the income account, all your deposits, all your sales, all your revenue is going to go into this income account, right? So at the end of the month, when you look at your deposit, that should equal your total cash sales, right? When you're looking, if you're a cash basis taxpayer, and all your revenue is going to go into this account here. And that's all that account's going to do is collect revenue, collect cash, collect sales. The other account that you're going to have is going to be called a profit account. The profit account is going to be most likely a savings account, right? And this is where your money is going to go that you're going to immediately fund based upon a percentage, based upon the size of your business, right? We've got some pre-allotted percentages. And Rondi, I can have this available for your viewers so that they can download that in your show notes. But
Awesome.
literally, it's great. So they're going to have a profit account for that. Then they're going to have a tax account where, like Rondi talks about, you're going to reserve for taxes, right? And that's going to be a savings account where you're going to be putting away usually about 15% for savings for taxes at the end of the year. And if you don't use it all, you'll just get a bonus, like Rondi said, to go to Florida. You're going to have another pay account for owner's pay. And this can be a savings account. And the owner's pay account is critical because, as a business owner, I need you to get paid for the work that you're doing. Too many times, too many business owners, when you ask them, who's your most valuable player? Who's your MVP in your team? They'll say Susie, Mike, Rachel, but they'll never say themselves. But the truth is, the moment you step away from your business, you have no more business, right? You have no more, no matter how wonderful Rachel, Michael, Susie, or Charlie is. If you step away, you are your MVP. There is no more business. So I need you to get paid. I need you to get paid. And so that's what the owner's pay account is for. So for you to get paid, right? Just like my back went out that day, I needed to hire somebody quickly to take my place. You need that owner's pay, not just to compensate you for the work that you do, but to pay somebody else if you need to step out of your company. And that's why that account is there for you. And the last account is your OPEX expense account. And that's going to be a checking account. So after you fund your profit, your tax, your owner's pay, everything else goes back into the operating expense account. And that is literally the small plate that you have to make business decisions. And when that plate runs dry, when that bank account runs dry, you're going to have to make some hard and difficult decisions. And so on the 10th and 25th of the month, you're going to fund each of these bank accounts based upon the predetermined percentages. So if you're a small company, let's say revenue under 250, 5% is going to go to profit of your total revenue. 50% of your owner's pay or of your collection are going to go to owner's pay. 15% is going to go to tax. And then whatever's left, which is 30%, is going to go to operating expenses. And so what happens is, with Profit First in the table that I'm going to share at Rondi is as your company grows, right, your percentage of owner's pay is going to go down and compared to total revenue, or what we call real revenue, and Profit First. And the reason why it goes down is because as you scale, you become more dependent on your team. And as you become more dependent on your team, by the time you make it to $10 million or $50 million, you're no longer relevant to the payroll of your company. You have scaled to the point that it's all about the power of your team. And so operating expenses naturally goes up and you become more of the name behind the brand.
Right. Yeah. And that's exactly where I'm at with the business. I got divorced last year. I took 10 months off and I really didn't work for 10 months. And what's crazy is my business continued to grow. And we're doing more this year than we did last year. And that's just because I really implemented the E-Myth, Profit First, and other things, and I have a true business. And you're right. That's what people need to do is they need to transfer that money around. And then what's left over is what's left over. And it makes you a lot more frugal and resourceful. And talking about resourceful, let's talk about credit. Because this is something that I see where most business owners that I coach and I talk to want to finance their way into success. And they finance themselves really into bankruptcy, and you can also, I did a podcast recently with a business owner where he sold himself into bankruptcy because he thought, all I got to do, and he's focusing on the revenue, focus on the revenue, focus on the revenue. Next thing he knew, he outsold his company and he bankrupted because he did too much in sales because the profit margins didn't go up. But let's talk about how most business owners, or not most, but how business owners think that credit is their solution to making their business profitable. And I'm sure you have stories like that. So what have you seen with that?
Oh yeah, credit especially right now with COVID, that you're all that's all you're hearing is about credit. EIDL loans, right? Those disaster loans, PPP loans out there, which can work either way. And a great thing, those are forgiven. There can be
Yep.
forgiven.
Mm-hmm.
And credit is the bloodline of America, right? As soon as you go to college, the first thing that you do is you trade your soul for a candy bar, right? You get a large supersized candy bar if you sign up for this credit card right now, the day that you graduate from high school, right?
Yep.
And you're rewarded every time you get a credit card. You get a t-shirt, you get another candy bar, you might get like a Frisbee, there's a reward for getting this credit. And, same way with business, right? And the first things that happens when you start your business, a lot of times you go to the Small Business Administration for
Mm-hmm.
training, and they talk about getting SBA loans and things like that. And the problem with credit is that if you don't utilize it right, if you don't utilize it right, credit doesn't go away, right? Especially if you're seeing these EIDL loans, they're $150,000. That's a house payment, right? That you could actually buy some houses for $150,000. And people are thinking about, I'm just going to use this EIDL loan right now just to keep my payroll, keep my rent expense, even though my sales are down, but they're not thinking, you know what, this is $150,000. You could have used that money to buy a house, right? To buy a home. And instead, if you're getting this credit to finance your current operations, right? To finance because your revenue is down, there's no ROI for that. There's no return on investment on that if you're getting credit for that expense just to keep afloat. And a lot of times these business owners, when they're looking at, I need credit, I need to get investors, they're thinking I need it to produce inventory. They're thinking I need to be able to pay my rent until I make it one day, until I can scale at that level. But there's no ROI. So if you're getting debt for that does not have a guaranteed return on investment, you're not going to be able to pay off that debt.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I see is people will hire me for the bit, they'll come to me and say, hey, I want to do your business credit course. I want to learn how to get, $500,000 of funding through my business and not use my personal social security number. And so I start asking questions, do you really have a business? Most of them have an idea for a business. Are you profitable? No, they're not profitable. What are you going to use the money for? Oh, I want to start real estate investing, or I want to run some Facebook ads. I'm like, it's not a good idea, because you're going to go and you're going to get yourself in trouble. But you can, if you use the credit to expand the business and that you're going to be able to make more money, then it makes sense. Like this equipment that I bought. I ended up paying around $100,000 with sales tax and everything. And I leased it. And the reason I leased it, even though I have the cash, is because I don't want to use my cash. I want to lease it, even though the lease is extremely expensive. I wanted to get through the winter and see what happens really with COVID before I eliminate all that cash. So I leased it. And even though it's $100,000 and the lease payment's about $4,300 a month, it is saving me, Susanne, about $8,000 a month in labor costs, postage alone. If I mail a letter, because through the credit repair company, it costs me about 57 to 65 cents a letter, because we use big envelopes. So call it 65 cents. Because I'm using a postage machine that automatically weighs and does it, it's about 45 cents. So I'm literally saving 20 cents an envelope, and we send out tens of thousands of envelopes a month. And so by using credit to buy or release this equipment, I'm saving $8,000 to $10,000 a month in labor costs, postage costs, printer costs. And so that is my example of using credit and not doing it the other way, where I'm going to go speculate on some Bitcoin. How have you personally used credit to expand your personal life?
We don't use credit actually in our personal life. My husband, I'm telling you, that man, he is the most frugal man you'll ever meet. He has something called a stray coin collection. And when he's walking through the parking lot, if it's a penny, he will pick it up and save it. And I hate to say this, but his stray coin collection makes more than an interest that most people earn interest from a bank, right? You just need to find a dime and you're like ahead of the game on a day.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I learned the hard way, right? I learned the hard way. I was the 18-year-old that got out of college, and I was tempted with like these supersized Kit Kat bars for like signing up for a credit card, and I found that when I got my first job, when I graduated at Anderson, I had to pay this credit off, right? I had to
Yeah.
pay it off, and it wasn't that easy to pay it off. And so in my personal life, I stay away from it because I'll be honest, there's very few things that'll give me a return on investment on my personal life that having a credit will do for me. Like, we did finance our house. Our house is
Okay.
completely paid off now. It's been paid off for years. I remember that feeling of when we paid off our house, just that relief, like, oh my gosh, we'll never have a mortgage payment ever again. And just being so proud of that, just having this house that we own free and clear. And like even being able to buy our car cash, I remember dropping $50,000 on our car, our Honda Pilot. And they're like, are you going to finance that? Or how are you? And I'm like, no, we're going to write a check. Can we just write a check? I mean, it was like nothing that feels like being able to just pay outright and not have credit. I mean, so we don't use credit for anything. Like I do have a credit card that we just pay off every single month, just because you don't want to be putting your debit card online. You might get in trouble with that. But again, there's very few things that you'll get a ROI by having credit in my personal life is what I find personally.
So I want to talk about buying the car loan, because that paying cash is a 100%, or not 100%. It's 180 degrees different than when I teach. And hear me out on this. Instead of paying cash for the car, and you paid $50,000 roughly for the car.
I did. I was my dream car.
If you would have financed it, you probably had only paid $45,000 for the car. So hear me out on this. And this is what I teach is have the cash that you can pay cash for the car, finance it, because you'll get on average a 5 to 10% discount because they are receiving from the bank that they place the loan with a 5 to 10% spread. So the way it works is that $50,000 car, you could go out if you have good credit, you can go to the credit union and get a 1.9% interest. My Jeep, for example, I just bought an $80,000 Jeep a week ago and I financed it, 6.99% interest. That is insane amount of interest for somebody with an 800 plus credit score putting 20% down. My credit union has already done the loan for $80,000 at 1.99. So I went to the dealership and I bought it and I paid 6.99. But it saved me about $10,000 to $12,000 off the sticker price because they are receiving from the bank a kickback or commission around $10,000 to $12,000. So I saved that money. Now what I do is then I go and I pay off that loan with my credit union loan and I save the money on it. But let's say that you already had the loan. If you went into the dealership and you financed the full 50,000, but because you financed it, you got it for 45. So now you're financing 45. The following month, Susanne, you could write a check for the full amount minus $500. And then you finance the $500 over that 5 to 6 year term, paying a little tiny bit of interest, which then keeps your credit score higher. Because if you don't use your credit, it will eventually drop off and then you're starting over. And so by doing this strategy, one, you save a bunch of money on the purchase of the car. Two, it continues to build up your credit and you're really not paying that much interest because you only have a couple $100 financed and you're paying $2, $3 a month on bill pay. So that's my strategy with it. And you're still paying cash, essentially.
That's a pretty cool strategy. I'll have to look into it. I do have an 824 credit score, but that is a pretty cool strategy.
Yeah, because that's history. But what'll happen though, you paid off your mortgage. If you have no car loans, eventually all that stuff is going to fall off. And it's going to fall off around 10-year mark. So depending on when you paid off your car and when you paid off your mortgage, around 10 years, it's going to drop off and you're going to be like an 18-year-old kid again. And things are going to get expensive.
Yeah.
And potentially these credit cards that you have, because they pull your credit every single month. If stuff starts dropping off and your credit score starts coming down because of that, credit card companies will go and close your account, even though you've never been late, even though you don't abuse it. But because your credit score drops below their minimum requirement, they close the account, then that snowballs. And now you're down to a 500 credit score and you've never missed a payment. So it's something to keep in mind. And then the other thing that you can do to make sure your score stays higher is if you have cars that are paid off, you do the same strategy. Go into your credit union or local bank, get a loan on it. They give you $40,000. You take it. The following month, you give them back all of it, but $200-300. And now you financed your car again for the next 5 years. So that's another strategy to keep that score up. I'm assuming you probably never use business credit to fund anything in your business. Is that a good assumption?
Well, I did get the PPP. I mean, who could turn that down? I mean,
Yeah.
who could turn that down?
I know I actually sent an email today to my bookkeeper and CFO and said, hey, fill out this paperwork because I got an email from my bank saying, apply for the forgiveness. And he responded with, you got to wait until 2021 to really do it. They don't want these applications right now. So because I got 125,000 PPP. And I use 100% of it on payroll, 100%. And I got a whole bunch of money in idle money, and I used that 100% of that on payroll as well. And then I took my operating expenses and I transferred them over to my Profit First accounts, and I used the PPP and idle money to pay payroll. And I'm hopefully they'll forgive the idle money too. We'll see. So, Susanne, it has been absolutely incredible having you on the show today. Any last words before we cut off? Because I got to get on to another appointment. My alarm went off a little bit earlier, so I apologize for that. But is there anything you would like to leave us with?
Well, this has been an absolute fun time, and it's been an honor to be on your show today, Rondi, and being able to speak to your audience. My last words are, you guys that are entrepreneurs out there, take your profit first, and remember your why.
There you go. Where can people find you? Because I'm assuming you are accepting clients throughout the United States that you would love to help some of my listeners out with their business.
We
Where
have
can they find you?
Thank you. We have a free Profit First masterclass where I will teach you the ins and outs of Profit First absolutely for free. It's a 5-day class that we have. We actually host it live on Facebook. And if you go to Facebook and you go look for Profit First with Masterclass with Susanne Mariga, again, that's Profit First Masterclass with Susanne Mariga, you'll find me there and you'll be able to take our class and learn all about Profit First.
And we'll put that link along with social media. You have a social media link?
That's probably the main one to find me, but I do go by Susanne Mariga on Facebook or LinkedIn, and my website for the author site is SuzanneMariga.com.
All right, so we're going to go and put all of that in the show notes. Thanks again, Susanne, for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's been an honor.